Hi, thanks for tuning in tonight, and welcome to Pittsburgh Sportsline. It's been a very eventful sports week, a lot of stuff to talk about. I'm Mike Migliori with Chip Hayner, Smoking Jim Frazier, and Al Levine, the Babe Ruth machine. So we're going to get started like we usually do. Al, what's on your mind?
Well, I'm not going to do all my infomercial Al stuff here. I do want to show a Babe Ruth autograph. I don't know if Rebecca can pull anything up on this. She might be able to. It's looking pretty good there. Babe Ruth is actually right here.
There you go.
That's his actual signature. And a gentleman that I just met, Vinny Pellegrino, owns this. And last year on TV, Paul Warhola, since I never mind dropping names, Andy Warhol's brother, who's like 92 years old, they were on all the different stations talking about this. It was a testimonial dinner for Walter J. Rabbit Marinville. And there's only about 8 different autographs of all Hall of Famers, from Paul Wainer to Marinville to maybe you've ever heard of the combination on a double plate, Tinkers, the Evers, the Chance. Well, they have Evers' signature here. But I have more important things to talk about today, so we'll cut all that stuff short. The main thing on my mind is this Penn State Free report. I don't know if anybody knows about Free's history. I don't know how he got involved in all this stuff, but he was involved in cover-ups with Flight 800 with TWA. He was involved with some Chinese cover-ups with elections. And this guy is determining what goes on with Penn State. Why is he the man in charge of that when the people who were in charge of this are not in jail? And there's so-called innuendos and emails. And there is a problem there. I was one of the ones that predicted this would be the biggest scandal in American history. Now it's actually the biggest scandal in NCAA history, which is bigger than anything. And look what they've done. Maybe they'll tear down that stadium. It's just crazy. I mean, think about this stuff. How do you penalize the kids and young men that signed on for 4 years at a school? Tell them they can never go to a bowl game. Then they penalize them $60 million. What about the victims here? What about the presidents of the college, all the administrators, and everybody else? Why aren't they going to jail on this stuff? You know, and then you're taking down statues, which maybe that needs to be put away. You're tearing down walls. What are you going to do to that stadium? So maybe we'll talk a little bit more about it, but to me it's so egregious to treat a university like this. They're just piling on all the Penn State haters. It seems like they're coming out of the woodwork now. Yeah. And I say go to the root of this. You got Free. Find out more about the guy who wrote this report. Just Google it. That's it, Mike.
Thanks, Al. Speaking of Penn State haters, Jim, what's on your mind?
We are Penn State. Hey, the NCAA did everything but drop them out of the Big Ten and put them into the inferior Big East Conference. But I tell you what, don't believe the hype. I tell you what, Penn State deserved the death penalty or the electric chair. They got none of that. And I'm going to go over each sanction and tell you why Penn State came out way ahead. Joe Paterno built Penn State into the dynasty, and it's going to continue like it's already has. Listen, first thing, $60 million. Are you kidding me? Pac-Man Jones got to pay $80 million that he ain't got in a civil suit. Penn State can pull $60 million out of their back pockets. First of all, this year, the alumni donated to Penn State a record $208 million. So $60 million is no big deal. Plus they get 5 years to pay that $60 million off. No big deal. The 4-year postseason ban. Listen, when you play for Penn State, do you need to go to a bowl game? You play in front of 110,000 people every week. That is a bowl game each and every Saturday. They get 7 home games. Vacating 111 victories from Joe Paterno. Is that a big deal? Joe Paterno still won over 400 games. Everybody knows that. You just turned Joe Paterno into Pete Rose. We're going to be talking about Joe Paterno for the next 50 years. Should he get his wins back or shouldn't he get his wins back? Reductions in athletic scholarships, no big deal. Lastly, players can transfer to another school. I tell you what, when you go to Penn State and you can play in front of 110,000 people, I tell you what, it's going to be hard to transfer to, say, Pitt, that plays in front of 20,000 people over in the North Shore. Hey, listen, you know, Penn State's going to have to go through some things. So number one, what I would do is immediately fire O'Brien. O'Brien's a bum, don't know nothing about college football. I'd either hire Jim Tressel, but if I don't have the money to bring in Tressel, I would hire Walt Harris. One thing about Walt Harris, he don't care about going to a bowl game, but Walt Harris can put together a nice, exciting offense, some nice, good receivers. And if you really want to penalize Penn State, why don't you just take away their home games, take away their TV rights, and make them play Pitt in Pittsburgh for the next 5 years? That's how you hurt Penn State.
Thanks, Jim. Chip,
how do I follow that?
Let's go back to that.
Obviously the Penn State thing has been occupying everybody's minds, but I'd like to give a little thought out and a moment of silence for the victims of the tragic shooting Thursday night in Aurora, Colorado. 12 people lost their lives, 58 people were shot, and all because they went to go see a movie. I want to give a little recognition for that, and also on another end of the sports world, to get away from the Penn State thing, because this is just I'm getting tired of hearing about it. Sanctions have been handed down. It's in my mind, it's time to move on. The Olympics are starting up on Friday, and it's every 4 years you got the Summer Olympics coming up, and it's a major event. And the United States did a pretty good job of splattering mud all over themselves, because they decided to outfit their Olympic team in uniforms that were made in China. I would think that if you're going to, represent the world, you would at least do it with American-made products. So, on a lighter note, instead of bashing the Penn State drum, I thought I'd just bash the United States government.
Speak of something that deserves a death penalty. Well, Jim, some of those points are absolutely correct. Where I have to start, though, is that Joe Paterno's dead, Jerry Sandusky's in jail, Spanier, Schultz, Curley are all gone from Penn State. Some of them will probably soon be in jail. None of them are still there. So who exactly is the NCAA punishing? All right, the logo, the name, maybe the growl that you hear when Penn State scores. I don't know, but they sure went out of their way to bend over for all the media hacks that had nothing else to write about for the last year or whatever it's been, and went on and on about this statue and on about this death penalty. And now you have State Farm, whose insurance I will never, ever buy again, who are dropping their sponsorship because whatever happened, they're no longer going to sponsor Penn State. And also, Penn State's credit rating is going to drop because I don't know. I mean, have they paid their bills? Okay, if not, then it should drop. But if they have, what does that have to do with what went on up there? I mean, their credit rating. What you got is a lot of people that want to jump on the bandwagon and want to rally around and become very visible and show how righteous they are by piling on to Penn State. So, okay, continue on. As far as the wins, Bobby Bowden is now the Division I wins leader. How's that feel, Bobby? Right, somebody had to lose 111 wins for you to get there, but you're on top. Good job. With that garbage team you had down in Florida State. Right, so now they're piling on. They're going on and on. Let me ask you, should they sanctions against Virginia Tech? I mean, somebody went on their campus and shot everybody. He didn't work there anymore, but, or maybe we should, nuke Germany tomorrow because they have to pay for the Holocaust.
They didn't cover it up.
So, but the people that were there.
Yeah, but Freed did his report. He has cover-ups. Just check out
Freed's a scumbag. He was Clinton's bag man.
Well, like I gave you a few points on just the TWA Flight 800. The FBI come in and did the investigation with him in charge, and the NTSB is supposed to be in charge. That's even a national law. Here, they took over, hid all the evidence, and said it was just an air pocket, basically, in a fuel tank. Then there were Chinese people manipulating the election, and he wouldn't testify. And then remember, there was some Olympic Park that a guy was falsely accused. Guess who leaked that name? It's like I'm saying Smoking Jim's in Bethel Park. What's he doing in Bethel Park? And there's a warrant for your arrest. Oh, there isn't. There isn't. He just leaked it, and he's in charge. These are all facts, and then this guy wrote the report. Right or wrong, you can talk about the death penalty, the quasi-death penalty, whatever this thing is, but look at the guy that's in charge of that. What did he get paid to write that? Who paid him? You got banksters that are going to lower the credit rating of Penn State. Do you know why? So you hurt them and cost them millions of dollars on their loans, or they can't borrow money. So, I mean, there's such a conspiracy here. Like I said earlier, this will be the biggest in USA history. I didn't know it would expand to the NCAA. And it
First
is.
of all, Magic Mike, never in your life do you talk about Bill Clinton. He was the country's first black president. Hey, listen, the NCAA, how in the world?
Well, he didn't do as much. He didn't do half as bad a job as the current black president, but he was worse. He was right up there with him.
But how in the world does the NCAA go off the free report, but they don't do an investigation of themselves?
That's point.
Crazy.
That's
that
my
point.
Point. Thank you.
Well, in defense of State Farm, they did announce that they're going to be backing the Penn State field hockey team. So, you know, they haven't completely cut ties.
Well, let me ask you something.
There was a little comic relief here. Hold it, it's getting heated.
With not as much football income coming in and $60 million going out, do you think there's going to be a field hockey team?
Not this year.
No.
Although Governor Corbett said they better not use taxpayer money to pay it.
They all get taxpayer money. Every school around gets something. They just get less of it now. It just depends on who's in. This will be for our political talk show. Next week, 10 a.m. 412-831-3304. We'll start talking some sports.
Well, Chip, the Pirates have been playing since the All-Star break. A whole lot like they were last year. They're winning a few more games, but they aren't playing a whole lot much better than they did last year.
They're still in contention, and they haven't fallen apart. You know, and as a matter of fact, the pitching staff has been stronger since the All-Star break. If you've noticed, with the last 5 games with the starting staff, Kevin Correa pitched 5 2/3 innings Friday night and squeaked out a win, and he didn't pitch his best game. Burnett pitched 7 innings on Saturday night. Sunday, who's pitched on Sunday? Karstens pitched 7 innings last night. Eric Bedard, who had been struggling going into the All-Star break, pitched an excellent game. Unfortunately, Smarzda from the Cubs pitched an even better game and one hit the Pirates through 9 innings. But, you know, they're getting better results out of their starting pitching right now, which is giving the bullpen a chance to rest because they're going to need them down the stretch. And the problems that the Pirates seem to be having, and last night was a fine example of it, is they're not getting the production out of the corners of the outfield. You know, they need to get better production out of there. Andrew McCutcheon's probably the best player in baseball right now. He's certainly the best hitter. You know, Casey McGee has played a lot better at first base, and right now, you can name a better double play combination than Barmes and Neil Walker in the major leagues, I'd like to hear that. Those two are playing completely lights out. Neil Walker raised his average from somewhere around 250 about 6 or 7 weeks ago, and he's batting close to 300. I know he got up over 300 a couple of days ago, but he's coming through real well, and I think the Pirates are set up for a nice run. You know, the only thing that's tripping up the Pirates and kind of confused me a little bit is the Cincinnati Reds. The Reds, I thought when Joey Votto went down, you know, that would have been like the Pirates losing Andrew McCutcheon, that they were going to miss a beat, but I don't think they've lost a game since. And, you know, they're staying right there at the top of the division, and the Pirates, they're still within striking distance. But I like what they've brought to the table since the All-Star break, and I'm just going to enjoy the ride the rest of the year.
Who pitched for the Cubs last night?
Smarsda.
I tell you what, that guy at Notre Dame, he was one of the greatest wide receivers in NCAA history. He was the closest thing to Larry Fitzgerald that I ever seen. I thought he could have been a great NFL wide receiver. Go back and watch films. He was unbelievable. So the only time that I cheer against the Pirates is when they play in the Cubs. And my man
Hold it. What kind of hat you wearing?
He's
on the bandwagon, Chip.
I'm going to
He's
tell you
still
what,
on
last
it.
night, if it wasn't for that ump's call and that infield hit Andrew McCutchen got, he would have been going into the ninth inning with a no-hitter, you know, because that hit that McCutchen got was an infield hit, and it was close. I mean, it could have gone either way. So, I mean, he pitched lights out. But Eric Bedard, you know, he had such a difficult time going into the All-Star break. He had 11 strikeouts last night and, you know, pitched 7 solid innings and, you know, and only giving up 1 run. And you get somebody to pitch like that for you any given night of the week, you're going to win probably 8 or 10 games, 8 of 10 games on a regular basis.
Well, the Cubs almost went 30 innings without scoring a run, so.
Yeah.
They were doomed. That's how streaks go. Just like Bedard.
But you know what I mean?
We've got Chip, Bedard suffers a disease called lack of runs because he doesn't get the run support. There's always a hard luck pitcher on the staff, and it seems like he's the guy.
Last year it was Mahomes,
right?
And he's pitching against the
They got
Pirates
that
tonight against James
lack of
McDonald.
runs. So that happens.
Well, last night's pitching performance notwithstanding, the Cubs are a very, very bad baseball team. And
No question.
The Pirates should win this series against them. They have a series coming up against the Cincinnati Reds that will probably determine the rest of the season.
Whoa.
I think if the Reds would go ahead and sweep the Pirates, I'd say Al's dollar is pretty safe. On the other hand, if
I hope not, because I already spent it.
the Pirates go ahead and beat the Reds or win that series and keep themselves in playoff contention, then probably I would say that they will continue on. And I really like their chances to get into the playoffs right now, but they're not playing all that great right now. I think a lot of people are too worried about who they can trade for. I would not be thinking about who they can trade for at all. Certainly they could use another bat, somebody in the outfield. Certainly they could use another pitcher. But for right now, keep what you have and continue to play like you did before the All-Star break, and good things will happen for the Pirates.
And I agree with Mike on that. I honestly think that the Pirates would make a mistake if they, in a knee-jerk reaction, made a trade right now. I think the answers to their problems lie within, and I think they've proven that they can play contending baseball. And they're 162 games. You're not going to win them all. Everybody knows that, but they're going to go through periods where they play very, very well. I mean, still, if you look at what they're doing since the 1st of June, they've scored the most runs of any team in the major leagues. And for a team that's was the worst in the major leagues for the first 2 months of the season in batting, that's quite an accomplishment. That still only brought them up to about the middle of the pack. But come on, it's June and July, and what you do in June and July has a lot to say about what you're going to be able to accomplish in August and September.
And that's amazing, Chip, because I've never seen a team who, in the first 2 months of the season, was basically going for the record in baseball as the worst hitting team in Major League Baseball history. And in the last 2 months, they've been the best hitting team in baseball. These are things that movies could be made of. Forget the amazing Mets. The Buccos. The Buccos.
Amazing Buccos.
Buccos are a great story.
Buccos.
And while we as fans were screaming and yelling about the way the Pirates are hitting and laughing at them in the first 2 months of the season, nobody panicked. They just showed up for work every day. They worked on the things that they needed to work on, and look what happened. And it really says a lot about the coaching staff and the commitment the players have to play and win in baseball.
And everybody's talking about Andrew, but my MVP is Pedro.
I got to disagree with Smoking Jim Frazier, but I will tell you an interesting stat that I heard. They've come back 27 games this year to win. The only other team that have more comeback victories, the Yankees. What's their budget? Maybe Nutting is a lot better of an owner than I first thought. So I'm still on the bandwagon. And Chip, I'm holding this buckaroo right now because they may have the El Fodo because maybe he'll start trading somebody. Or maybe he'll get somebody in here who's almost done with his career and change the whole complexion of that team.
I'll tell you another interesting, useless fact about the Pirates is they've got two guys at this point in the season. This was as of last weekend that have hit 20 home runs already at this point in the season. The last time that happened for the Pirates was in 1920. Okay.
Wow.
Yes, that is a pretty amazing statistic.
Say that again.
And Pedro
Say
Alvarez.
it again, slow.
Say that again.
Okay. By the middle of
Because I saw
July,
that stat.
okay, the last time the Pirates had two players that have already hit 20 home runs for the season. At that point in the season, the last time that happened was 1920.
Who's the two guys?
I can't remember.
Babe
No, I
Ruth.
mean, who's the two guys this year?
Alvarez and
McCutcheon.
Yeah,
McCutcheon.
your boy Alvarez.
My MVP, Pedro.
There's no way.
And my
He
colleague
plays
down
a-
here to my left was the one that said that Alvarez should have been playing for Indianapolis as the
I
season
say put him
started.
down because he still has that lackadaisical attitude in the field. He's cost him at least 3 or 4 games that I've watched. And these guys get entitled. It's not old school baseball. It's like, I'll listen to Hurdle if it helps me. I'll do what I think is best myself. I'll just play out of it.
Alan's trying to get me fired up. I'm telling you what.
I like a little
the thing I like-
controversy here.
The thing I like about this Pirate team more than the Pirate teams I've seen, and I've been to a lot of games in the last 5 years, is that everybody on this team is hustling now. Who was it? Burnett.
Cabana.
The other night, he bunts. He hustles down to the first base line, gets an infield single because what's his name? The Zambrano, the big oaf from the Marlins. Instead of fielding the bunt, he gets in the way of the catcher, so that the catcher had to run around him to throw the ball to the first baseman, which gave Burnett a chance to score. I was at the game Saturday night, and I don't think I ever laughed as hard. We scored 4 runs in the bottom of the 4th inning,
saw that.
and we didn't get a single hit.
Wow.
Right. How many walks did he have? He hit batters?
Three walks, 2 hit batters, a sacrifice fly. And watching the first inning of that game, I turned to my wife and I said, "You watch Zambrano. This guy's going to have a meltdown." He'd already thrown like 27 pitches in the first inning. The guy he was all over the
Hey,
place.
Chip, what happened to Ozzie Guillen? I thought he's one of the best managers. He was looking at him spitting those sunflower seeds all over the place, but he didn't yank them.
No, but he got a good 3 2/3 innings out of him.
For us, it was good for us. It was a good Bucko game.
Well,
But yeah,
Ozzie Guillen is tired because he's still running guns for Castro.
One of his idols.
But
He only took a, 2 game penalty?
I'll tell you right now,
5 game
get down to PNC Park and enjoy the ride because the rest of the season is going to be a lot of fun.
Chip, how were those fireworks?
Excellent.
So you enjoyed a game? It was like a doubleheader.
Yeah,
You got a
I
good
got
game,
I got
and
to
you had
watch
good
a game,
fireworks.
and I got
See,
to
I'm
laugh.
on the bandwagon.
I got
I'm
to
still
laugh
on
at
that
the Marlins.
bandwagon.
We saw a nice fireworks show.
I heard they were fantastic.
Absolutely.
Thanks for the update. But I'm still on your bandwagon there.
Yeah.
Jim, as far as like McCutcheon and Alvarez, I'd say Andrew McCutcheon is one of the front runners for the league MVP,
No question.
but I would not say he's a clear-cut front runner for the team MVP because I think you have to give Burnett a lot of consideration for what he's done, not only pitching but a lot of the other things that he brings to the team, the leadership value and stuff like that. I think that he has made a huge difference.
I absolutely agree with you, Mike. You couldn't have spoken better. AJ Burnett has
usually
made
the
a
truth.
AJ Burnett has made a difference to the pitching staff. Look what he's done to James McDonald. He's actually turned him into a very quality starting major league pitcher. Last year with James McDonald, you didn't know what you were going to get from one game to the next, and you've seen a lot more consistency out of him. And he's been struggling as of late, but it was good to see him. In his last outing, he struggled, but he still got the win. So,
And I want to congratulate Magic Mike again for going out his way to find a white guy to get a crown to.
Are you serious? Is that what's behind this? The conspiracy guy. There we go again. He did pull that one out of the hat there.
Well, isn't that how it should be?
Folks, this is their routine. Call in. They've been doing this for 8 years, and if you count the 4 years on the Champion Network, which Where is that TV network? They've been doing it for so long. Call us, 412-831-3304. Or if not, check out the reruns on YouTube. Pittsburgh Sportsline on YouTube.
Well,
you can hear these two.
When I was a part of the Champion show, it was a very good show. Unfortunately, the only place you could actually see it on TV was in a Chinese restaurant up in Monroeville. It just happened to be the place that they were shooting it at the time.
I was at a Super Bowl show, and I know they filmed us there. There's no doubt in my mind.
Have you seen the film?
No, sir.
There you go.
So training
But
camp
they didn't have a
opens.
coat over it.
Training camp opens tomorrow.
Who's going to be there?
Yeah. Well, Mike Tomlin is with that nice new contract extension that the Steelers signed him to.
Wow, I didn't hear about that. Again, didn't they just sign him to it?
No, they signed it, gave him another 3-year extension, so he's guaranteed for the next 5 years with the Steelers.
Nice.
Wow. Wow, was the terms released?
I did not hear anything.
They signed Castro, or DeCastro.
Yes.
DeCastro.
Yeah,
Yes.
they sure did. They
Which is
got all
a
the
good
rookies.
signing there.
Yeah, and Mike Wallace is still conspicuous by his absence. Will he show up for camp tomorrow? Will he sign his deal? Are they getting closer to signing a deal with him?
Okay, Prophet, what's your prediction?
Here's the thing with that, though. Mike Wallace is unrestricted free agent.
No, he's not unrestricted. He's a restricted.
Restricted, okay, my mistake. Restricted free agent. So he is not actually a part of the team. So he's not holding out. He just hasn't signed a contract with them yet.
He can't play for anybody else.
I
He
mean,
can't sign for anybody
we've
else.
seen people hold out who had contracts, and they hold out because they want a better contract. I don't know, maybe Heinz Ward, somebody like that would do something like that. But so Mike Wallace. So what my point is he's not actually holding out on the Steelers. I mean, he's not a part of the team, so he doesn't have any reason to be at training camp.
Well, if
Yeah.
Mike Wallace doesn't show up, the Pittsburgh Steelers maybe extend an olive branch to Heinz Ward. I think he can still run the bubble screen.
No, he's moved on with his career, I think. He's an announcer now. He's a paid announcer.
For what? Yeah,
And
he'll be just like Tiki Barber and Jerome Bettis, 1 year and out.
One and done. Well, at least he could go on Dancing with the Stars again.
He just sold his house in Atlanta as well, so
That
he
mansion.
needs that job.
Did he sell the mansion? How much, Jim?
It was undersold, believe me.
Really?
One of the things that you notice, and is very evident in Pittsburgh, if you watch any like Penguins or Pirates broadcasts, is just because somebody is good at a sport doesn't mean they're able to talk about it. Some of these guys, Steve Blass is as bad an announcer as I've ever seen. Used to think that he had an arm problem and that was why he couldn't find the plate anymore. I think he just forgot everything he knew about baseball overnight and was not able to Bob Walk's not much better. And I mean, the Penguins announcer, they're not much better either.
Well,
I never badmouthed the
Heinz Ward
Penguins,
would have
but-
been good with us at that restaurant in Monroeville with the Champion show.
Yeah, well,
You're coming out.
lounge act. I mean, it's
Maybe he could show up for the
good
next
place
one.
for 'em.
You know what? I'm going to be his little PR guy.
But going into this year's training camp, there's so many questions about the kind of team the Steelers are going to put on the field this year. It's going to be interesting to see. I mean, there's going to be a complete change in offensive philosophy, changing of the guard, who's going to be the next stars of the team. We've gotten a little spoiled. We've criticized the last two teams that went 12-4 each, and I can imagine what's going to be said this year when the team, struggles to hit 500.
Ooh, there's two guys
I
on our
agree.
show, the
I
Prophet
agree
and
that-
Smoking Jim. I still have to see how
I'll
that
bet
team
$1
is.
they make it over 500.
There he goes. He's going to take your dollar from me. He's going to take your dollar from me.
I'll take 50 cents of that.
Figured that
The
written
Browns
down.
just signed their
What's going on
their two first-round draft picks. They signed Whedon today. They signed Trent Richardson the other day. Of course they're going to be playing in Cleveland, and then they could screw up anything. But, the Browns will be a better team. Cincinnati became somewhat of a contender last year. And, the Ravens have got to be the odds-on favorite to win the Super Bowl with the best quarterback in football.
Well, one thing about Whedon for Cleveland's already developing liver spots on his hand. He's a 29-year-old rookie quarterback. So shelf life's not real long for him. But they got a great running back in Trent Richardson. Cincinnati, I believe, will take another step back this year. They lost an outstanding receiver. I don't know how they allowed that to happen. The guy that did the somersault into the end zone would have been a 1-2 punch with Green.
Well, where they lose him to? The State Pen?
yeah. He's in there with Daz Bryant, who smacked his mama.
Oh, wait, his mother's retracting it. She said he didn't assault her. She's dropping the charges. Yeah, it's in the news today. It makes me sick. You make a national splash like that, say you're going to have your son arrested because he beat you. Then now a week later say, oh, no, he didn't. I'm not going to press charges. They had to press charges against her.
That's because sometime during the week somebody reminded her if he doesn't play, he doesn't get paid.
Mm-hmm.
Follow the money.
He just bought her another house or something, Hey, Mama, this will make it all better.
Maybe they had to get Dallas out of get the free report
on
what really happened with Daz Bryant.
Free will help him out. No problem. Wait till you study that when you go home and Google it. You're going to say, Al, I got to talk to you about that. How come there's 10 different things he covered up?
Wow.
At least.
Because he was a scumbag. I'm telling you, he was a bag man for Clinton. And that's all he was.
And there's the honest truth there, Smoking Jim.
He's talking about the black president again, Clinton.
It's a little bit better than the current black president. Not a lot, but a little bit.
How about them buckos?
Of course.
Anybody know about the
Obama's
buckos?
only half black. Clinton was the real deal.
Little technicality.
According to his birth certificate, he's black.
Which one? Which one? Can you get your birth certificate right away? I know I can. Why is it a big secret? And I'm not even a conspiracy guy about that. I could care less. Then Mike's going to bring up about a book or something. 412-831-3304. We'll talk sports and anything else. We'll cover whatever subject. Just call in.
Well, Jim, you were right. I think that Cleveland is a vastly improved team. Trent Richardson will do a lot of good for them. I don't know that Baltimore is definitely the favorite to win the division. I think Cincinnati. I'm sure the Steelers will still be able to make a show of themselves. A lot, I guess, will depend on scheduling and stuff. But I don't. I think that every team has made an improvement to their team. Steelers on their offensive line were looking pretty good till they signed Max Starks.
Whoa, I like that.
I know you do. That's why I said it.
That's hurting me.
And that's. I think that they have a pretty a decent chance to contend. I don't think that the division this year is going to be one of the better divisions in the league.
No, and I think that the difference between the top teams in our division, I think the AFC North, that everybody got a little bit closer to one another, and it'll be more of a dogfight this year than it's been. I remember back in the days of the AFC Central, they used to call that the black and blue division, and I think we may see a little bit more of that because there is some animosity. The Steelers beat up on some of these teams pretty good over the last decade, and they're going to want to get their pound of flesh.
And whenever you have the greatest player in NFL history, which Ray Lewis is for the Baltimore Ravens, you got to be odds-on favored to not only win the division, but to also to go on to the Super Bowl. But my team this year, if they get it together, is Tebow and the New York Jets. I think that those.
Did you say Tebow's going to start?
Well,
or is he playing a lot?
Well, when you got a guy like Tebow, you find a way to get him on the field. I'm not saying he's going to start right out of the exhibition season, but by fourth or fifth game of the season, he'll be garnishing most of the play time, and by about the eighth game of the season, they'll be turning Tebow loose.
Maybe they'll make him a receiver.
Well, Mark Sanchez will see to it that Tebow's the starter by about the third week.
Yes,
because Mark Sanchez is going to crumble under the pressure in New York City because the minute he starts, stinking up the place, the New York media and the fans, they're just going to boo him right out of the stadium, and the pressure's going to be on Rex Ryan to start Tebow just like they did, in Denver. They started him over Orton because of the fans' pressure, and they got it. The fans are the ones that are paying their salaries.
Yeah, but Rex Ryan has him starting as the blocking back on the punting team, so that might keep the fans all happy that he's on the field. As Sanchez 3 and done each time, so he'll get out there maybe 8 times, 10 times a game. That might keep the pressure off of him for a while, because you'll see Tebow getting those snaps.
As long as he makes a couple of good blocks, drops to one knee, and does a Tebow, then I think everybody will be happy.
So what kind of a chance do you think the Saints are going to have this year? Jonathan Vilma's still fighting over whether or not he's going to be suspended, but even if he does play, I don't think he's going to make much of a difference. But what kind of an impact is Sean Payton not being anywhere near the team going to have on them going forward this season? That'll be interesting to see how that's going to play out.
Well, it'll be interesting to see how Drew Greed does this year. The New Orleans Saints offered this guy right out the gate. He's supposed to be this great leader. They offered him the highest contract in the NFL, and he still didn't sign it until recently. I think that shows a lack of leadership and greed than it does anything else. He's not the best player in football. I think the team's going to take a huge step back, not because Peyton is gone. Peyton wasn't much of a coach. But because that the organization was on the downside. I think they should take their Super Bowl away. I would like for somebody to step in, take that Super Bowl away, because they tried to hurt and they had a bounty out on the greatest quarterback in NFL history, Brett Favre. And for that reason, I think they had to move the Saints out of New Orleans.
Maybe Roger Goodell
You can
should take a
call-
page
no,
out of
call
Mark
it
Everett's book.
$60 million fine, take away 111 wins.
What you have to do is call up Free. Louis Free is a
Because
mercenary
Roger Goodell
for
can
hire.
do it, and when they
Goodell
appeal
can
to
hire
him, they
Free.
can deny it.
Yeah. All you have
It's
to
a
do
perfect
is
system.
just hire Louis Free, because however Goodell wants to rule, Free will write the report for him.
But I tell you what, the one guy that should be signed for New Orleans is Graham. Jimmy Graham is an outstanding tight end. The tight ends in this league is getting great. The Pittsburgh Steelers took a step back. A friend of our show, a friend of L. Levine, the talking machine, got cut before training camp. So I'm a little bit mad at my friend Coach Mike Tomczak. They cut a 6'8", 260-pound guy that worked his tail off in the offseason. Wes Lyons will not be reporting to training camp. He got released by the Pittsburgh Steelers prior to training camp. And you, friend with him, Mel, you've seen how great a shape this guy's in.
This guy is in super shape, just unreal. And he's having that ghost-written autobiography, so I appreciate and respect that.
And what a mixed match he is for any defensive back at 6'8".
He's huge. And you think he's actually a thin guy, and you said how much does he weigh?
260 pounds.
He doesn't look like 260 pounds. But I have a point to bring
Did he
up.
block?
Never blocked a day in his life.
That might be a
I'm surprised the Steelers didn't jump on him.
Make him an offensive lineman.
He was a wide receiver his
I was
whole life.
saying, I'm surprised. If he can't block, the Steelers should have gobbled him right up, along with Max Starks.
Well, what did Todd Haley think of him? That's what I want to know, since he's the guy in charge. How's this offense going to thrive like it has before? Since he likes yelling at players, do you think Big Ben's going to handle that?
Todd Haley, all he does, he's been watching more golf than any coach in the NFL history. This is a former golf pro. Who cares what Haley thinks? His offense is based primarily on Madden philosophy. So you can play against Todd Haley at any time on Madden. That's be the same thing.
Really?
He does as coordinator.
Well, I think this year is San Francisco's year. I believe San Francisco will win the Super Bowl this year. I just think that they are the better team out there this year. They have a nice coach, good offense, great defense. I think that they're going to go ahead and win the Super Bowl
San
this year.
Francisco's going to make a run for it. You can't forget about the Green Bay Packers. They still put an amazing team on there, and I would say Aaron Rodgers could arguably be the best quarterback in the NFL, much to Joe Flacco's chagrin. But I mean, the NFC. There's going to be a lot of quality teams, and you're going to see the Carolina Panthers be a much better team this year. Cam Newton's got a year of NFL experience under his belt, and he is an exciting player.
Well, I tell you what, I'm giving you guys Smoking Jim's stone cold lead pipe locks. If you got a Lucky Louie in your neighborhood, go ahead and bet your house. Here is a for sure out of the gate.
Wait, 412-831-3304 if you dispute this, man.
Put your house down, all the money that you can get. First week in the National Football League, absolute lock. Pittsburgh Steelers get blown out by the Denver Broncos.
All because Ryan Clark can't play? Come on, Smoking Jim. He'll be rooting for him. Come on.
Actually, because a couple of other guys can't either. Ouch. And they will be on the field.
Ouch. Wow.
Good call, Jim. I like it. Good call.
But I agree with you, Magic Mike. I think it's the San Francisco's year. I think the Harbaugh brothers are some great coaches, and Jim Harbaugh is the best coach in the National Football League, and they'll prove it again this year. Being that they had a guy that never returned punts or kickoffs for them all season long because their kick returner was injured, was the reason they didn't make the Super Bowl this past year. He fumbled, 3 punts, and they still almost won the football game. But this is the year, and they were not interested in Peyton Manning because they got their future quarterback there.
You're the best. You're the best.
Well, I have to tend to disagree with you on
He's
Jim
trying to stir
Harbaugh
you
being
up.
the best coach in football because, if he had a guy in a critical situation in a championship game that's never fielded punts, why did he have him back there fielding punts? That's not a very good coaching move. You can't fault the player. I mean, he only plays the plays, but I mean, that's a coach's decision. And personally, I think that Jim Harbaugh is a jerk. I've seen the way he's behaved after the games when it comes to being, showing some sportsmanship. But, I mean, the San Francisco 49ers were one game away from making it to the championship, but they came up just about that much short, and I think they're going to come up about that much short again this year.
But I tell you what, though, one thing I can say, and you guys know how I feel about Coach Bill Cowher. I think that Coach Bill Cowher is a Hall of Fame coach. He's probably not going to make it. But Bill Cowher owes Jim Harbaugh a lot because that first Super Bowl, don't forget that Jim Harbaugh was the starting quarterback of the Indianapolis Colts, and they threw the Hail Mary pass where Darren Perry, who's usually closer to the guy selling peanuts than he is to anybody on the football field, showed that all brothers can't jump because he got about a half an inch off the ground. The ball went over his head, and everybody thought the guy caught it for a touchdown, but it rolled off his chest, and the Steelers got an opportunity to go, and my man Neil O'Donnell threw the game in Dallas. But
Not the Jersey conspiracy theory.
Northern New Jersey, brother. They got to him. The Northern New Jersey mob got to him, man.
No.
Somebody did.
But he was able to see his family after the game.
Okay.
So
and he got signed by the Jets afterwards, right?
Always good at the end of the game, man. At the end of the
He
day.
got signed by the Jets after the game.
Second best quarterback the Steelers ever had.
There's a little history, a little fiction and
And
fact.
then on a lighter note, I think
That was like
the job that Chad Ochocinco did, stinking up the Patriots wide receiver core last year, don't think it'll happen this year. He's changed his name again. He's now Chad Johnson.
And here's a
I
little.
wonder if that'll affect his play.
And here's a little known fact: Chad Johnson is first cousins with Keyshawn Johnson. So those are
No surprise
so
there.
no surprise there, man. So Chad Johnson played on a junior college team with the Indian from Cincinnati. Remember the guy that Husmanzada?
Okay.
The three receivers was Husmanzada, Chad Johnson, and Steve for Carolina, Steve
Smith.
Steve Smith. Those were the three. It's amazing they never lost a game. That was the
was the
junior
quarterback?
college. Huh?
Who was the quarterback?
Who
And
cares?
who cares? Yeah, who cares?
He just chucked the ball up there. Those guys.
Yeah,
Carson
probably was
Palmer.
Pete. Probably was Pete Gonzalez. It doesn't matter who the quarterback was. I'm just saying. But then Chad Johnson and Husmanzada end up going to Oregon State, and they got more money from Erickson than they got when they signed the NFL contract. And Stevie Smith, who was already married at the time, went to Utah to look for another couple of wives. But and I knew that Steve.
You're on fire.
And don't forget that Utah had a bum receiver at the time named Kevin Dyson, who ended up being the first receiver taken over Randy Moss. I predicted he would be a bust. But Stevie Smith, I predicted would be great. I'm watching a game, Utah, and this is Stevie Smith's, his whole thing, man. They're playing Hawaii in Hawaii. Last play of the game, they're down by 4 points. Steve Smith takes off, runs past the Hawaiian secondary, catches a touchdown, jumps into the stands, goes 20 seats, rows up, sits in the stands. They're throwing sandwiches at him, popcorn at him. He's like, no, his teammates is like wanting to hug him. He's like standing there, sitting there. I says, man, this guy's charismatic. He's a little Money Mayweather right here. And then sure enough, he was just that way in the National Football League.
Well, get on a different note, as we move on with sports. We've got somebody else who we can make pretty good fun of. This past weekend was the British Open, and I've watched one of the more amazing collapses of golf happen on Sunday afternoon. It was kind of funny because, I don't know who got more airtime was the caddy for Adam Scott, or Adam Scott bogeying hole after hole on his way down the finishing hole. He bogeyed the last 4 holes and bogeyed his way out of the tie for the championship for the British Open. Ernie Els birdied the 18th hole, and he was at 7 under. The other guy's at 9, then he's at 8, then he's at 7. And so Ernie's over there practicing, and the other guy hits his drive right in the pot bunker, and he has to go sideways to get out, and then he lips out his putt and loses the championship. And it's just amazing. Ernie Els was sitting there eating a sandwich, and he won a tournament. He wasn't. His teammates weren't throwing anything at him, but that's because golf's an individual sport. But the caddy that was Adam Scott's carrying his bag was Tiger Woods' caddy for all the years when he was winning all those majors. And and he's I don't know if he did this deliberately, but it seemed like every time they took a shot of the golfer, he got his mug in the camera, like what's he doing? Pimping for a new job.
Did he have his book?
Yeah, Tiger closing in the autograph. Tiger was still in that tournament there. Another few good shots.
That's good.
But it was another one of the most memorable collapses in PGA history, especially in a major.
Well, I watched part of that Open too, and it always amazes me when I would look at the news the next day or later on that night, and it will start off telling you what Tiger Woods' score is, and then it may or may not get around to who the leader was. But they talk about Tiger Woods no matter what, because without Tiger Woods there is no golf. Yeah. There are no TV ratings, and there's nothing to talk about.
Well, let me ask you guys this, not to change the subject, but if you were the University of Pittsburgh, and would you now, because now Penn State players are allowed to leave today or any day, and they don't have to sit out. They can play immediately for another school. If you were Pitt, would you try to get you about 6 or 7 or 8 of those Penn State players?
Yes, I wouldn't wait.
Actually, if I was Pitt, I'd try to get Penn State on my schedule and schedule a bunch of home games because they might fill Heinz Field if they did.
Right on.
With all the Penn State fans.
I mean, there was always the argument that Paterno ended the Pitt-Penn State rivalry, and in the 70s and the early 80s, it was one of the better rivalries in college football, and for whatever reason, Joe Paterno decided that he'd take his game somewhere else, and his program flourished, and Pitt kind of circled the bowl and still has. But it would be nice to see that series renewed, and I think it would be on a more even playing field now that Penn State's going to have 10 less scholarships per year, and basically they turned Penn State's football team into a Division II team with a stroke of a pen yesterday.
Well, to be honest, I don't think as many players will leave Penn State as you might expect, and the ones that do, I don't think that they're going to go to Pitt. They've been punished enough already. I don't think that they're going to come over here and play for Pitt. I would imagine that they would want to stay in the Big Ten someplace. But the problem with that is, of course, that all these teams already have their
they're 3 weeks out from training camp.
Right, they have their players. They have all their. I don't know if because Penn State gave them a scholarship, they automatically have a scholarship somewhere else. I'd say probably not, because so Michigan or Ohio State that has already used up all their scholarships are not going to have a scholarship to give these players.
Well, if I was with any of these athletes that are playing for Penn State right now, and one of the requirements of the sanctions against them is that these kids that are on scholarship now, they could stay, and they don't even have to play football, and they can still get their education. And say what you want about the scandal and everything else involved with it. A degree from Penn State University is a top caliber degree, and you could go out into the business world and make a far bigger splash than you probably could by playing college football there. But I'd take advantage of the opportunity to get the education and be set up better for life than to potentially play college ball and end up crippling yourself and never even having a chance to play in the pros.
That sounds right. That's what he said. I don't think that as many students are going to leave there. Then again, maybe if you read the free report, which actually I have read the free report, and there is not a thing in there that would stand up in court, like absolutely nothing. But with the reputation Penn State has now, maybe if you graduate, you have to register as a sex offender someplace wherever you move, because the whole world seems to be piling up on them right now. I can't even imagine what idiot would decide, okay, well, we're going to lower their credit rating because some guy who's no longer there molested some kids. I don't know. I don't understand the thinking behind it.
And I'm not sure what a degree means from Penn State, but I know if I was a student athlete there, the parties at Penn State is second to none. So that could be one reason for these guys to stay. And like you said, they're a little bit close to getting a degree. You got a lot of friends. Some of them are in fraternities, but I think that the University of Pittsburgh, they're in need of a quarterback. And I think the best quarterback on Penn State's roster is Paul Jones from Stowe Rocks. The only problem with that is they made it very clear that you can only transfer if you're in good academic standings, which Paul Jones will not be eligible to transfer anywhere.
Have you ever been to Penn State?
Oh, all the time. I used to go to the spring game.
Then this is true. If you're at a party at Pitt, you might drift out into Oakland, or you might go over to Southside and leave that party. If you're at a party at Penn State, you ain't going nowhere. You are in the middle of nowhere.
But with everything that's going on with Penn State, Penn State, Beaver Stadium, every Saturday home game, becomes the third largest city in the state of Pennsylvania. They get 110,000 people in there, and they probably get another 20 or 30,000. Now, with the way they're coming down on Penn State for everything right now, what's going to happen if the first game of the season they sell out and people are up there actually laughing and enjoying themselves? Are they going to be chastised because the cloud of this whole thing hanging over them? Are people going to be persecuted because they're going up and enjoying themselves? I think it's going to be an interesting thing to see what happens attendance-wise and how the crowd reacts, when it comes that first Saturday in September.
Well, you do have one of the biggest alumni associations at Penn State, actually in the world. I think the only one bigger is a school out of China, and they have over 1 billion people, and they're all forced to go to school, but that's just a theory. And the degree from Penn State, most people around here, they'll have multiple degrees that I know, and they have great jobs. They have a Pitt degree and a Penn State degree. The Penn State degree does carry a lot of weight, Smoking Jim, and they do make some money with that. So it's very valuable, and I think Penn State will come back. They'll be showing up to show their support, because here's what the problem is. You had one sick individual. You had all these other people cover for him, supposedly. They aren't convicted yet, but it will happen. And what about these victims here whose lives were ruined? those are the ones that our hearts should go out for in our prayers there. All this other stuff really doesn't mean much, even though I'm a little fired up about Free and how he is. Just research him again, and you'll see what kind of guy he is and where the money is.
That university in China, is that where Yao Ming went? Listen, if I want to be, I'm not sure how many great schools within Penn State University you have for a degree, but if I want to be a doctor, I'm going to the University of Pittsburgh. I'm not going to Penn State if I want to be a medical doctor. So maybe there are some degrees that Penn State, agricultural degrees, maybe there are some that separates them from other schools, but I think that Pitt, CMU, and schools like that are right up there. I think as far as people hiring them, if you want to be a medical doctor, Pitt is the way to go.
Well, not everybody can be a medical doctor here.
But where would you go to Penn State to be? I mean, I'm just saying. I mean,
engineers, teachers, doctors, geologists, archaeologists.
A lot of bridges in Penn State College.
People,
horticulture.
People who go to Carnegie Mellon don't need to get jobs. They're already rich. They can't afford the tuition there.
That's a good school, Carnegie.
It's a good school, but it's the highest tuition in the world, I believe. I think Chip had a good question there. The answer, Chip, is that just like the whole thing since Sandusky was, since it came out, is it's a media thing. The media will drive it. If the media decides they've got nothing to write about, and they're going to carry on about, well, all these people were having fun, and like 10 years ago somebody was molested here. Isn't that terrible? Or if the media decides that people that are going to Batman movies and enjoying themselves for the rest of the week are horrible because they're doing wrong to the memory of these people, and that's what they'll write, and that's what people will read. I mean, on the other hand, personally, I think it does a disservice to the people who were killed at that movie and gives way too much credit to the scumbag that shot them if you don't go to see that movie just because that happened. Don't let these people win like that. And if you're a Penn State fan, watch them on TV when you get a chance. If you're a Penn State fan, go to the games if you're alumni, whatever.
Be proud to wear your blue and white.
Don't let people change your mind. Okay, you have your own mind. Make it up for yourselves. Anyway, thanks, Chip. Thanks, Jim. Thanks, Al. I guess we'll see you next week. And don't forget, it's very soon, August 6th, we'll start having Monday shows at the Level 20 Lounge. See you next week.
Thanks for watching.